What up, what up, what up, what up? It's me, L Teddy 27.
Good as night, right about the hood.
Oh, dear God, I'm already eating a drink. Look a damn mess, just a damn mess. No means no, and yes means no. What up, what up, what up, what up, what up, what up, what up? What's good, people? What is up? What is up? What is up? What is up? It's me, L Teddy 27. I'm back. I am back for you all. This is another review. This is going to be our review for Lovecraft Country, Season 1, Episode 9. It is entitled Rewind 1921. Let me just say, I'm going to stop apologizing for saying that these reviews are too long. This is going to be one of those, okay? I cannot even speak to the level of respect I have for the writers, the love I have for what they brought to us this week. Those people who've been following me a long time. The last time y'all saw me do a review, donned in all black, had on shades, I had a whole breakdown moment in the middle of the review. And that was when we did Pose Season 2, I think Episode 4. You see I got on the shades again? It was that kind of episode. Let's dive right in. Y'all know it's going to take us a minute, so let's get there. Let me say this now about this review, though, before I get started. Normally in my reviews, I do a lot of breakdowns. I try to, do a lot of research and give you a lot of stuff. And I have some of that here, but it won't be as heavy laden with that in this review, only because I don't want to take away from the sheer raw emotion of the episode. I don't want to take away from everything that this episode depicted and what you were supposed to take away and all of that it had in it. So I'm going to start off by saying that we are going to, let's just enjoy the ride. All right, let's dive right in. We start in with everybody's at Jordan Hippolyta's house. Dee is laid on the couch. Her arm is just like totally gray and decaying, and she is, going up her neck. You can see into her face. She is dying. And she appears to be turning into one of the demon girls. If she's going to be the Topsy triplets now, no longer the Topsy twins. Topsy, Bopsy, and Mopsy maybe, or Dopsy, Dopsy. Anyway, but she's transforming. They're trying to figure out what's going on. Ruby comes right out and says, "Listen, all y'all are to blame." And I'm looking at Ruby like, hello, you were supposed to be looking for her too. They ain't the only ones that's to blame. You to blame too. I love how you try and, put this off on everybody else, Ruby, but that's a whole nother story. Anyway, so Ruby comes and Ruby just says everybody's to blame. And that's true. Everybody is to blame. Tick says that they need to contact Christina so Christina can help them put a spell that can cure her. They can use the book of the pages that they got from the Book of Names as leverage to, get her to do it. And let me say this about the beginning. The first 15 minutes or so of this episode, there were so many like big reveals that came out just, haphazard. I'm not going to say haphazardly, but very matter-of-factly, and they just brushed by these big reveals that the entirety of the season, we were like, ooh, when it's going to find out? Ooh, when they going to find out that? Ooh, when they going to find out that? And they ceremoniously, during the first 10 or 15 minutes of this episode, say, bam, 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 bam. Girl, all that's out the way. Now what you want? I was like, oh, so y'all just going to give us all that real fast. But I appreciate the fact that they said, let us get that out of the way so that we can do everything we need to do at the end of this episode, the second half of this episode, or the last 2/3 of this episode. So Letty comes right out and says, listen, we can't give her the pages. I gave it to her. I tried to get her to put a spell of invulnerability on Tick. She wouldn't, but she put it on me. And Montrose goes off. Montrose says, how dare you, da-da-da-da-da, you told us no more magic going on. Ruby steps in front because Ruby a big girl. You ain't just going to jump on Ruby like that. Ruby says she had to. Ruby almost lets it out that Letty's pregnant. Letty stops her. Anyway, Ruby says Christina will, because Tick is like, well, that's all the leverage we had. Ruby's like, she'll do it for me because we're scissoring. Little do you know, we bumping uglies, and she'll do whatever I need her to do. If I lay it down on her one more time, a mess, a whole mess, just a bloody mess. Anyway, literally, we saw that last episode. Christina then comes over and she sees these drawings and whatever. We talked about that last episode, last review, how Dee was drawing pictures, letting them know exactly what happened to her and how she got this way. And so Christina, remarks how gifted Dee is as an artist. And I love how they spotlight this young black girl and her being gifted and her being phenomenal in her talent and abilities, just like her mother is. So then she immediately knows that Captain Lancaster did this, that he used his parts of the books that he has and the stuff that he knew from Hiram, and the fact that they can't undo the spell. The only person who can undo the spell is Captain Lancaster. Christina says, all I can do is I can do a restoration spell, which will kind of reverse it or take her back to the beginning of the cycle of the spell, but it's still going to start going on again, and eventually she's going to die again. So it's not really going to heal her. It's just going to take her back temporarily until it starts the process back over again. So then we see them going back and forth, and she said, listen, I'll do it, but if I do it, Tick has to come back, agree to come willingly to come back with me to Artem during the autumnal equinox. And then she, because she was like, well, Captain Lancaster is dead. And she was like, what happened to him? Christina says, what happened to him? And they make up some whole lie about Captain Lancaster being blown up in a gas explosion and stuff. We know what happened to Captain Lancaster. We also know that Christina knows that Captain Lancaster ain't dead. But that's a whole nother story. So Christina and Tick says, I'll do it. So Christina says, all right, I got some stuff to attend. Here's what y'all need to do. Y'all do all this. Y'all gonna need the blood of her closest relative. And so Tick immediately says, Dad, that's you. Meaning Montrose, you're gonna have to give her blood. Now, I told y'all in my last review, I knew that Captain Lancaster wasn't dead. I knew that. I just felt that. I said, this man cannot be dead. Not that easy. Not with the magic and stuff that he knew. I knew Captain Lancaster was gonna come back. I told y'all, go back and do my last review. I told y'all. Anyway, Christina then says that she's going to go. She has a personal matter to attend to, and so forth. Now, Hippolyta is gone. We know she's really the closest blood relative. And so with Hippolyta being gone, Montrose is the one who's going to have to give up his blood. And now Montrose has a problem. We know what his problem is. We'll get there in a few moments. Christina goes over to Captain Lancaster at the police, down to the police station. Captain Lancaster is over there. They're trying to cast a spell. Now, they've been going around kidnapping black folks, cutting their bodies up to use in order to regenerate Captain Lancaster's body. But every time he tries to do it, it just makes the wounds happen. Every time he tries to regenerate and they do the spell correctly, the wounds happen and he gets shot. The body ends up, the bullets, and blood comes pouring out. So it's like he keeps reliving all of the things that caused him to die over and over and over and over. And they're wondering, like, why is this not working? We did the spell right this time, not knowing that little stone that Christina had Ruby put into Captain Lancaster's desk is the reason why it's stopping him from being able to completely regenerate himself. So Christina comes, they looking at him like, wait a minute, I thought you was dead. I bet you did think I was dead, huh? That's what the other cop, William says to the other cops. Captain Lancaster immediately knows it's Christina. Christina goes over to him and is like, I wanted you to die 1,000 times. Like, I have to sit here and watch William die 1,000 times every time I take over his body. But I settle for this one death. Now, catch this. She knows that if she kills Captain Lancaster, that kills any possibility of that spell coming off of D. So by killing Captain Lancaster, technically she's still killing D, because even though she's going to do the restoration spell, she already told them that the only way to take the spell off is Captain Lancaster. And if she kills him, she's their only hope. She's very strategic, and she tells you that later. Listen, I'm very calculated and strategic in everything I do. So, but that Christina ain't shit. But at least the good thing I can say about Christina, she tells you. She stands in it. She tells you 10 toes down, I ain't shit. I ain't never been shit. And this is what I did to prove that I ain't shit. Hold on. So, then we back down to George and Hippolyta's house. Montrose is in the garage. He done took out some moonshine. I think they call it road rash or something like that George gave him. He's drinking because he knows at this point he has to tell Tick that there's a possibility that he's not the father. Now, everybody's making the assumption that automatically George is a father. We don't know that. Even George, in the conversation that they had before George died, said, we don't know. Montrose is still maintaining we don't know, which means both Montrose and George had sex with Dora. This is the 1950s and, earlier. They weren't necessarily having, paternity tests and stuff like that. Was Maury Povich even born yet? I mean, come on now. Anyway, so we really don't know. So people are making a lot of assumptions saying that automatically George is the father, and we don't know that. And so that's why Montrose is like, I got to tell. So he's drinking because he knows he got to reveal it to his son. And then, ladies and gentlemen, this is what I want you to do. At the 8-minute, 3-second mark, okay, in the 3-second mark, Tick comes downstairs. Ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary conformists, we then were ceremoniously introduced to Tick, otherwise his real name being Jonathan Majors. We're introduced to Tick's meat. Do you see what I see? Did y'all really hello casting wardrobe? Y'all let him roll up out of wardrobe with these pants on, giving us all of this, thinking we were not gonna see it. We had been waiting with bated breath and anticipating all season long for the slightest glimpse, and y'all just put it out there this episode in all of its magnificent glory. Praise you, 7 pound, 3 ounce, sweet baby Jesus. Thank you so much, writers. Thank you so much, HBO, for gifting us with this monument to the show. I loved it. Now, the entirety of this scene where they're in the garage and when Chick got on these brown pants, I am watching very closely. Still paying attention to what's going on, but watching very closely and rewinding a few dozen times just to see it over and over and over again. You'll do the same thing because y'all see what I see. Don't act like you didn't see it. Anyway, moving on. I had to gift y'all with that because this is me. This is the house of debauchery over here. We give y'all that kind of stuff over here. Anyway, those are little gems that you only get over here. Who else is going to be talking about that in their review? Anyway, Letty, so Tick and Montrose have a conversation. Montrose says, I don't know if my blood is going to work. Tick says, yes, da-da-da-da. Montrose says, George might be your daddy. And he just said it just willy-nilly, like, just throw it out there. Yeah, George might be your daddy, too. And he was like, Mama cheated on George, cheated on you with George. And Montrose goes into this whole long story. There's, oh, you don't understand. You can't know. You don't understand. We were really close after the whole massacre, Tulsa massacre situation. This is a bond that we have. And I was like, are y'all telling me y'all having some whole kind of threesome, flowers in the attic, 2 brothers and this girl? I mean, it was a lot. But anyway, Tick is incensed once again. He's livid. He is so upset with George because he was like, wait a goddamn minute. I done had to endure all these years to get my ass whooped, wishing that George was my daddy, and now you tell me that there's a possibility that he is my daddy, and you thought you were just going to just slide that in there like that, and I wasn't going to be mad? We ain't here for that. But in all actuality, the only way for us to find out is if the restoration spell works, because it depends on whose blood they use. If they use George's blood and it doesn't work, then that means that Tick is really, if they use Montrose's blood and it doesn't work, that means that Tick's blood should have been used and that George is the father. But if they use Montrose's blood and it does not, wait, did I say that wrong? If they use Montrose's blood and it does work, then Tick is really Montrose's dad. Somewhere around there, y'all will figure out what I'm trying to say. So this is an old school paternity test that they could have done. Notice I said could have done at that time with this whole restoration spell. Anyway, let me find out that Christina later morphs herself into Maury Povich and does, paternity tests for a living. Anyway, Letty comes downstairs listening to this whole back and forth chick going off for the old new past. The president say, listen, Christina's back. She's here. And we done, Dee's fever is broken. And who comes around the corner just like nothing? Hippolyta. Something wrong with Dee? Hey, boo, you been going for how long? A couple weeks now? And you just roll up in here like nothing's wrong. Like, hey, y'all, what's wrong with my daughter? No, girl. Hey, girl, where the hell you been? Girl, I look, because she really just wrote. Did y'all notice also she had on this backpack, like this book bag? And that's how you knew she had been to another time. Because I don't think those style of book bags were worn back then. Anybody else notice when she first arrived, you see this black book bag she has on. And if I'm not mistaken, during that time, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure somebody's going to fact check me, but I don't know that they were wearing those styles of book bags back then. I'm just saying, let me know. Anyway, because she been missing in action this whole time, and she just rolled up in there like it was nothing wrong. Also, what this also means is that our paternity testing isn't going to happen because Hippolyta, naturally being the closest relative to Dee, is going to use her blood. So now we still don't find out whether or not Montrose is Tick's father or not. Anyway, we have this whole exorcism where they do the restoration, and it looked like something out of, this is where I thought they were channeling the horror movie The Exorcist, where you see them sitting around, all these people around this girl in bed. She's almost fully turned into one of the Topsy twins or whatever. She, with the hair, the, pink around the lips, the grayed out skin, like she's almost completely there. And so they use Hippolyta's blood. They start to do the spell. You see the maggots and flies come out of Dee's body just the way it came out of the ground when they put the spell into Dee, and it went into Dee. And so then Dee is restored back to how she was before, or at the beginning of the spell, before the spell started to take hold. Then Christina leaves. Ruby follows Christina and leaves with Christina. Letty goes out there to talk to Ruby, like, girl, you really gonna go follow her? And you, let me tell you, she has a whole plan to kill my baby daddy over here. You following this whore? And Ruby is like, you need to be following me too, because you over here doing like mama and following some whore. At least I did the opposite. I mean, you are following some man, chick, man, whatever he is, as well. He just happens to be white, like your mama did, but whatever. Ruby basically says, I ain't here for y'all. I'm here for Christina. I'm going over there, and you need to be going with me. You don't need to go. So she was basically telling Letty, you need to be trying to protect your child and stay away from Tick. Everything that follows Tick dies or something happens with them. Ruby get in the car and going on with Christina. Hippolyta, Tick, and Montrose and Letty, they're there. She asked them, what is the source of the curse? They say the book of names. He says, where's the book of names? Was lost in the Tulsa massacre. So Hippolyta's like, then we got to go there. And he was like, so Tick, like, the time machine was broken. She was like, I can fix it. Trust me. She then tells the Bliss that I went to Earth 504, not our Earth, Earth number 504. I was there for a small amount of time, which equated to about 200 years in this Earth's time. Baby, I was instilled with unboundless and limitless knowledge, ability, information. I could name myself anything I wanted to. And baby, I'm going to conjure and summon up all of that ability and wherewithal to save my damn daughter. So get in the motherfucking car and let's go to the observatory. Anyway, because she was like, don't worry, I got this. I'm going to fix it. So then, that's what they do. They get in, they go. She'd already packed D in the car. She'd already packed D in the car. They go on their way to the observatory. After that, we at Christina's house. Now, Christina and Ruby have this whole conversation. Christina explains to Ruby who the Lady Dale is that, whose body she uses, and how, Dale ended up in a coma because your sister bust her in the head with a shovel and so forth. And they have this whole conversation where Christina is very forthwith and very open and honest with Ruby. Yes, I did that. Yes, I did that. Everything your sister said is correct. I ain't lied to you, not one iota. I did it. I do it again. And I plan to go forward with what I need to do. And so that's the one thing you have to respect about Christina. Christina ain't hide a hand. She did not. She showed you. She put it all out on the table. And it's funny that she puts all the cards out there while Ruby is holding these cards in her hand. Now, the thing about Ruby is Ruby seems to believe that she has power, but this is still more so I'm going to just put it out there. It seems like a situation where there's still this white master and a black slave, thinking that they can use that because of their closeness and their relationship with this white master, that they're almost equal, or that they're going to help them, when in all actuality we know this white master is not going to help this black person, and if anything they're just using them as one of their pawns. A mess. And think about it, Ruby is doing everything in her power to become a white woman, whereas this real white woman Christina is doing everything in her power to become a white man. And Ruby should have seen the writing on the wall when this white woman doesn't want to be a white woman. And Ruby should have said, yeah, let me turn into a white man. But I don't understand how she don't see that, but let's keep it moving. Anyway, Ruby makes Christina promise. All I need you to do is promise that you won't hurt my sister. As long as you do that, you can do whatever you want with the rest of them. Leave my sister alone. And Christina was like, all right, I promise. We'll see how that comes to fruition next episode. So they get to this observatory. Anybody notice how when they first showed us the observatory, they were in Mayfield, but now they're in Kentucky? I don't know if Mayfield is in Kentucky. Somebody will correct me, hopefully, in the comments. I don't know. Y'all help me out with that. But I noticed that they said Kentucky this time instead of Mayfield. Anyway, Montrose is outside the observatory. Baby Montrose has a whole, he drinks all the rest of that moonshine, because he's preparing himself now for what he knows he knows that they're about to go back to Tulsa in 1921. He knows what happened. And he's bracing himself because he knows, this is not going to be an easy ride. So he is bracing for what they're all about to witness. Hippolyta and Tick, they go in there and start fixing the machine. She tells them all about how, circuit boards and motherboards. And I thought it was so fitting that she talked about, because they were like, what is a motherboard? Remember, this is 1955. Motherboards haven't even been invented yet, I don't think. So she's a mother, and she's going to be the motherboard, and she has to connect to this computer. The computers had not even been invented, I think, by that point, in order to save her daughter. Think about it. So she says, I'm going to plug the machine into my body, and I'm going to be the motherboard for this, and I'll open up the portal. Now, on this machine, Montrose and Letty talk, And I don't know what they were looking for, what they were doing, but Montrose lets Letty know, yeah, I know you pregnant. Tick told me you was pregnant because he went into the portal as well, and he went into the future, and he knows y'all have a son. And he lets her know because she was like, I said, yeah, y'all have a son. And he was like, so by you doing what you do with the invulnerability spell or whatever you did by giving away those pages, you are probably responsible for the death of my son. And he was like, you won't know what that feels like until you have your son, and then you'll understand why I cannot forgive you. Girl, ain't nothing I got for you. I don't have it for you right now. So anyway, so not only does Letty know that Tick knows, she also knows she's going to have a boy. Hippolyta, talks about hooking herself up to the machine. She hooks herself up to the machine. She said, listen, I need the picture for that George has from when they were a boy. In the backdrop, they say it's the Stratford. Now, that's important because if I'm not mistaken, well, we'll get there later. We'll get there in just a few moments. But anyway, you see this picture of young Montrose, and their dad. Montrose, and let me say this. I like how in this series there's this huge women's empowerment thing going on where you have beautiful, strong Black women, gifted, talented. Also in the backdrop, you see fathers. You see Black male fathers raising their children. You see that Black men have not always been absent. And there's that whole juxtaposition where people think that Black men never take care of their kids, where this show really highlights fathers in their own way. Now, sometimes I ain't saying they always did right, but they are raising and caring for and taking care of their children the best way they know how. So I really love that, because even when we talk about Montrose and George, I kept wondering, where was the mom? But anyway, they used the picture. The portal opens back to 1921. Tick and Letty jump in the portal. Montrose is frozen, and he is suffering from what we know is extreme PTSD. He is so afraid, and you hear Hippolyta yell to him, Montrose, go in, Montrose, go in. And I guess he reluctantly bites the bullet and says, okay, I gotta jump in because I gotta show them where everything is. So he jumps in, but you can tell he is so afraid and so fearful of going inside of this portal back to 1921. So let's talk about the Tulsa massacre, or the Tulsa riots, or whatever you want to call it, which happened in 1921. Now, this story happens in Tulsa, Oklahoma, more specifically the Greenwood neighborhood or section, which was an affluent Black neighborhood where you had Black professionals, doctors, entrepreneurs, businessmen, all types of everything that white people were, Black people were in this town. They were affluent, they were knowledgeable, they were educated, they had money, they had their own banks, they had their own everything. So anyway, if I'm not mistaken, somebody will correct me. The Tulsa massacre started because of, I'm not mistaken, the Stratford Hotel. What we do know is there's a young Black teenager by the name of Dick Rowland. Dick Rowland is a young teenage boy. He works as a shoe shine at the hotel. He's Black. There's a young teenage girl by the name of Susan Page. Susan Page works as the elevator operator at same hotel. Now, people say that they were at least platonic friends. And you later find out Susan Page always said, I wasn't pressing charges against him. He did nothing to me. I don't know why they bothered that boy about me. But it was alleged that he either sexually assaulted her or did something sexually to her that a Black boy should not have done to a Black girl at the time. And so because of that, white people got upset. They wanted to lynch Dick Rowland, and the sheriff, in order to save Dick Rowland from being lynched, jailed him. And they were going to trial. On the first day of the trial, a whole mob of white people came out there to try and do something to Dick Rowland. And so once that was found out, some about 75 to 100 Black men came armed and ready from the Greenwood neighborhood and said, nah, it ain't going down like that. And one thing you had to respect about these people in that area, they weren't here for all of this nonviolent foolishness. They were like, y'all strapped up, we strapped up. So much so, you read stories about that Greenwood area, they believed in I for I, two for two. And they actually lynched a white man in, I think the year before this went down. So there was a very tenuous relationship between the whites and Blacks at that time. So when the Black people came there to make sure that they was going to protect Dick Rowland, the white people called all their people. And so now you had about 1,500 to 2,000 white people out there that were coming to confront these Black people. And, tempers flared, so forth and so on. And it went down. And that's where it it went left. And so there was this whole, they began to burn down the Greenwood neighborhood. They went to the Greenwood neighborhood. They burned it down. The cops were involved. They were a part of it. The National Guard was involved in a part of it. There were bombs dropped. There was 35 blocks of that area that was burned to the ground. You had, I think they said up close to maybe 300 black people died. When they burned down this whole area and all of these thousands of black people were displaced, the United States of America created concentration camps for these black people to stay in because they had burned down their whole neighborhood. Yeah, this happened in these yet to be United States of America. So all of these things happened. And you had some very affluent, nationally renowned black people that were killed in this massacre. Now, I do want to say this. We talk about the Tulsa massacre and riots, and there were other areas, and there's been movies depicted about some of them. Like you hear about Rosewood. If you go back in the day to D.C., there was huge riots in the early 1900s in D.C., Washington D.C. that was akin to this, where the government and the police burned down whole blocks and neighborhoods of people. Same thing happened in New York, and in different pockets of the country, these things happen. And I'm glad that this particular one is coming to light, and I hope that the others come to light as well, because these things the history of these places need to be told. And I'm so glad that they brought this to light. So, all right. Let's go back to our story. So back to our story. I'm sorry, I went on a tangent there. So now they're there. The three of them, they change into 1920s garb because they want to remain inconspicuous. Letty keeps on her sneakers from the 1950s, which, I'm thinking in my mind that probably is going to give you away, but she kept them on. But she still had on her 20s clothing. Anyway, as they go forward and they're trying to make their way to to Tick's mother's house in order to get the book of names, Montrose kind of stops. They go a little bit and Montrose stops, and he just paused and he's stalled. And Tick is like, you need to come on, bring your ass on. And Letty's like, are you okay? And Montrose is like, y'all don't know what y'all about to get yourself into. Y'all do not know what you're getting into. And at that moment, I think that was I forgot the name for it in movie and film, where that was the character talking to the audience. As much as he was talking to Tick and Tick and Letty, he was talking to us, the audience, because I don't think from that point on, we were not prepared for what we were about to see and witness. It was so traumatic, not dramatic, traumatic for me even. And he was letting us know, yeah, you're not ready. You're not ready for what you're about to see. So then they push forward. But before they push forward, Tick goes off on Montrose again. He's still upset. He's still angry about the fact that he may not be Tick's son. And he says, as far as I'm concerned, you ain't my daddy. And when this is all over and we save D, me and you, we done. I don't want no parts of you, all this, that, and the third. And Montrose is so, you can see Montrose is the sheer gravity of everything that Montrose was going through in his head, because Montrose literally is about to start reliving what is probably the worst moments of his entire life. He's about to literally, it's one thing to live through it. It's another thing where you have to literally go back, watch the worst moments of your life, and then not being able to stop it, but being forced to watch it and not be able to do anything to stop it, knowing that you can't stop it, and you can, but reliving that's like double the trauma. Anyway, so they continue to push forward. So they make it over there, and they're watching from like across the street or something like that, where Montrose and George stayed across the street from, not across the street, stayed next door to Dora and her family. So they get ready to go. So Tick is like, Letty, you go to the house because they're not going to know who you are, and it won't be, you're the one who they won't know at all. So before they get ready to go, Montrose says, hold on. So then you see Montrose's dad comes out, young Montrose comes out. Montrose's dad said, pick a switch. He gets this switch and out the tree and commences to beating Montrose down out in the middle of the yard for everybody to see. Beat him down. Apparently Montrose because it's the day of the prom, and we learned that it was Booker T. Washington High School's prom, and it got canceled, and George was going to the prom with Dora. So anyway, Montrose had put on George's jacket for his suit jacket, and he had taken the corsage that George was going to give to Dora and put it in his hair. And Montrose's dad caught him, and this is going into the whole gay thing. And Montrose's dad went in and wailed on him. It was hard to watch. It was so hard to watch. And this is where it began to trigger me, because if you've ever been a young gay boy at around the age of about, from the time you can remember, anytime, a male figure, or sometimes even the moms or female figures saw you do something that looked gay or appeared to be gay, that happened to you. That was real. Getting beat within inches of your life and being told, don't do that. No, we ain't gonna have that in my house, this, that, and the third. And the trauma of knowing that you just trying to be you isn't right. And you getting beat within inches of your life so many times over, because I've had that happen to me. It has happened. And I'm sure so many gay males can identify with that. Not just gay men, but different thing. But it just, in this situation, we're talking about a gay male. And so I immediately was like, oh God. And watching it, I was like, oh, it was a lot. So then they watched Montrose get beat within inches of his life. And I think Tick and Letty started to see, wow. And the acting job that Michael Kenneth Williams does this entire, y'all better nominate this young man for a best supporting actor from his role, because he acted his ass off in this whole episode. Let me tell you, Montrose channeling the anger, and you could see the way he was emoting just with his facial expression. It was a lot. So they're watching this, and Letty and Tick are talking, and they're so forth and so on. And while they're talking, Montrose escapes from them. Montrose gets away. I forgot to talk about the fact that Dora came and saved the day. Dora jumps in front of Montrose, and Montrose's dad has to stop. And so George comes outside, and George didn't really save Montrose, and Dora did. And Montrose's dad almost tries to hit Dora, and Dora's dad came outside and said, hey, boo, you can beat your sons however the fuck you want to, but what you're not going to do is you ain't going to touch mine. Let her be. He said, let her be. And so she stood flat-footed like what? And that you can see that Dora had this thing for protecting Montrose, and she was angry. She chastised George for not protecting Montrose like he should have. And this goes back to, if you remember in the second episode, where George lamented not protecting Montrose as much as he should have, and it's just a whole lot there. So then Tick gets away from because Dora and Montrose find out that the prom is canceled. Tick gets away from them. They look around, Tick gone. So Montrose is like, Tick is like, Montrose must have went to go warn George about Artem. Letty says, and he says he's going to the park, because he said, my Uncle George and Pops always told me about the park. And so he said, I know that's what it is. And they're like, that's 20 minutes away. He was like, we don't got that kind of time, so we're going to split up. So they decide to split up. And Montrose is going to go after, Tick is going to go after Montrose, and Letty is going to go to Dora's house to go get the book of names. Now, when they're leaving each other, Letty tells Tick, why don't we name him George? That's to let Tick know, I know that you know I'm pregnant, and I know that you know it's a boy. So, but Montrose never told Letty what the son's name was. That was something that Letty just came up with. All right, so we then see Montrose. Montrose is in this alley. And the alley is across the way from the park, where this fountain is or whatever. So Montrose picks up this bat out of a trash can, and he takes the bat and he busts out the window to this car, and he takes a bottle of liquor and starts to drink the liquor, because he knows, I know what's about to come. I need to brace myself some more. So he does that, and that's important that he grabbed that bat. And he breaks the window, and when he goes to starts drinking alcohol, he throws the bat on the ground. Then we see Letty is on her way to Dora's house. There's this whole confrontation where these white men beat up this black boy, and so then they try to go after Letty, and they start to do the Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo. If you know the history of Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo, that does talk about Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo, catch an N-word by the toe. That is real. That is the real word to that song. And it talked about, that was a song that whites would sing. It goes all the way back to, slave auctions and stuff like that. And it goes back to the times where when slaves did try to escape, they would catch them. Although it didn't really, I think the kid version said, if he hollers, let him go. That's not what I think the real version said, something about $20 and stuff like that. But it talks about white people catching black people. That's where the Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo comes from. And that's just a little bit of history. Y'all know we like to give a little bit of history in these. Gotta give y'all a little bit. Anyway, He shoots, the white people shoot at her, and we know she's protected. She ends up falling on the sidewalk in front of Montrose and George's house and Dora's house. And Montrose's daddy come out and Dora's daddy come out, shotguns ablaze. What? It starts shooting at them. And I was here for it. I told y'all, the Greenwood people, they wasn't to sit idly by and just let it happen. They was here for the fight. They was the knuck if you buck bunch. Okay? They was here for all of it. And I was here for them. They was like, come on. Come on. I was here for all of it. So then, but we know that Letty is protected by the spell of protection. So, you know, the bullets bounce off and all of that stuff. So they take Letty in the house. And, you know, they get the guns and they come up with a plan on how they're going to protect themselves. And they make Letty tell them, hey, what's going on out there? She be like, it's a, you know, car full of white people down the street, da, 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 da. So they know it's going down because one of the other, I think it's Dora's mother or Honor, somebody that says she talked to Annie Mae, and Annie Mae said, was trying to tell them what was going on, and the phone was caught off, and they start to hear that, and there's a lot going on. So they know it's already starting to happen, it's going down. I forgot to mention also, when they first got to Tulsa, Tick and Montrose talked about the fact that Dora's house got burned to the ground the first night of the riots and the massacre, and her whole family died in the house, except for Dora. And so in this episode, we are anticipating, we know what's going to happen. That's the beauty, you know what's going to happen. It's just literally having to sit there and watch it unfold is unnerving. So then, they come up with this plan. They give everybody a gun. You go here, you go there. Maybe they were strapped. And I love how Dora's father says, hey, shoot to warn first and then shoot to kill. We ain't playing no games. Then we see Tick catches up with Montrose. And they watch a young Montrose with his first love, which is this young black boy named Thomas. And this is where they just began to take me out. This is where it just, I got caught up. I couldn't. Montrose starts to tell the story about how he wasn't there to save George. He was there to save his friend, Thomas. And he talked about how I forced myself to forget his name. And now he's remembering his name. And I was like, oof. Oof. Thank God they cut away to Letty. So Letty starts this conversation with Dora's sister, and they have, I think her name is Beulah. They have this whole conversation about, you know, I was a little brat to Dora, and I was kind of upset that she got to go out with George Freeman, and I really like George Freeman, and you're not gonna tell her I'm sweet on George. And you see Letty tell her, she asked Letty, you know, we're gonna be all right. He's gonna save Dora. Montrose's dad is gonna save Dora, and everything's gonna be. And so Letty has to tell her, yes, everything is gonna be okay. And I was like, oh God. Because we know it's not. And I just sat there like, oh, why? And so then we cut back to Montrose and Tick. And then Montrose starts to just open up and just pour out his heart to Tick. And he tells Tick all about, you know, who Thomas was and about all the sacrifices that he made to be Montrose's dad, and how he talked about having to cut out all of the soft parts of him to become a man because the men have boys. And yeah. As much as that was 1921, a black young gay boy having to come to grips with doing everything they can to fight off being gay and to stop everything that he knows that he is, but he can't allow himself to be. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, okay? And being a young boy I kind of knew more about myself in the 90s. I remember those thoughts and those beliefs and those feelings and those wanting to do everything I can to fight what I knew was inside and trying to cut away all of the soft stuff and bad stuff. Sometimes for, you know, safety to life issues, because you didn't want to get beat with the inches of your life anymore. Sometimes because this was still the days of being gay bashed, and this is the 1990s, and that was way back in the 1920s. And for me to feel that closeness with someone that was 70 years before, knowing what I felt like some 70 years afterwards, shows us that these yet to be United States of America still have a long way to go. And I just was immediately myself taken back to situations where I can remember having to do that. And it was a lot. At this point, I'm just boohoo crying. Tears, I just buckets just flying down. I couldn't. It was just a lot. I had to pause. I just had to pause. It was just a lot. And you saw Montrose and Tick. They were breaking down. They were crying. Not but with this, that, and the third. They had this whole moment. And he was like, "You don't even understand. I did everything I can. I would give, and I did that. I gave up everything. I gave up whole people just to be your father." And so I think Tick needed to hear that, because here he is so ceremoniously just writing off Montrose that, "Oh, you know, screw you. I'm done with you. This, that, and the third," not knowing the brevity of everything that went on. But let me say this. There's so many parallels with this show. I like how last week we had the story centered around a young black boy accused of whistling at a white lady and him dying, and a whole thing happening with the Emmett Till. And that was during Tick and Letty's time. And the whole thing again with the Tulsa massacre centered around the same thing, a young black boy supposedly doing something inappropriate with a white woman or girl. And there was a whole to-do that happened because of that. So just like everything it just comes full circle with Montrose and Tick, which for me almost submits, I feel like Montrose is the dad, but I guess we'll find out. Even if he ain't biologically the dad, he raised you, that's your pappy. So anyway, I had to get up off of that because I felt myself getting, verklempt and, emotional again. So I had to come up and give y'all a little bit of that to bring myself back. Anyway, Letty talks. We then see Letty at Dora's house. Letty goes looking for the book of names. Letty's Dora's grandmother finds her. I think her name was Hattie. I'm gonna call her OG. Okay, that's the OG for real. So OG finds Letty and says, "Hey boo, what you doing? What you looking for?" Because Letty looking feverishly for the book of names. What you looking for? Because I noticed you went from around here. I ain't never seen no shoes like that. I ain't never seen no white, blue, black, or purple people with those shoes. Where you come from? And so Letty tells OG all about how she came from the future, this, that, and the third. It probably seemed far-fetched, but OG knows a little bit about magic because she does have the book of names. She knows all about it. So when I think what linked it for OG was when Dora described the birthmark. And she was like, "Yeah, your cousin Ethel has it, and you have it as well, and your great grandson has it as well." And so I think that's what connected it for OG. So OG asked her, "What happens to us?" And she was like, "We die here, don't we?" Because she was like, "If you're coming from the future to get the book of names, that means that it doesn't make it to the future." And she was like, "We die here, don't we?" Now, I put together immediately, it wasn't that the book didn't make it because it got burned. The book didn't make it because Letty went back and got it. Because later on in the scene, we see that history is fixed. The way they do the whole science fiction, the history is fixed. We'll get there in a few moments. So, but she figures out, yeah, we're going to die, aren't we? At that point, I was already crying. I was already emotional. And knowing that this strong black woman was going to sit there and die, it was a lot. It was a lot. Then we cut back to Montrose and Tick watching young Montrose and Thomas. And the white people came, and Tick talked about how they were so scared they grabbed each other's hand. And he was like, "We didn't even so much as get close to each other in public. And we were so scared we grabbed each other's hand." And so the white people came. And it's the only time you're going to hear me say these two words in tandem, probably ever, but I will for the purpose of the impact that it had. The white men came, and with everything goes on, and so they called either Montrose or Thomas a nigger faggot. I'm not going to repeat that ever again, but I wanted you to feel that. And that's the duality. It's one thing for you to be the N-word with the ER. And now when you have to couple that with being the N-word and the F-bomb together, and that's the only reason that I said that. As much trauma as it is, just being one, to be both exponentially heightens the trauma, heightens the fear, heightens all that you have to go through. It was a lot. It was a lot. Montrose then and Tick watches young Montrose with Thomas, and they shoot the Thomas guy in the head. And that triggered me. Quick story of myself. When I was a young teenager, back in the streets of Miami, I remember I stayed in a real bad neighborhood. Anyway, long story short, I was coming out of the store right behind this guy who's a drug dealer. Guy opens up the door, and I knew who the guy was. I've spoken to the guy many times. Guy opens up the door to the store to go out, and I was leaving right behind him. He immediately gets shot in the head. Since I was like feet or two behind him, the blood and brains of the guy came on me. And when I saw that go on young Montrose, I was like immediately taken back. I was just taken back to that time. It was a lot. And I remember that. Oh yeah, that was, yeah. And so it was so powerful, so emotional seeing Montrose watch it. And I think what Montrose had to do here, Montrose had to allow himself, by wanting to go back and save Thomas, was him wanting to go back and take back on some of that softness that he talked about cutting away. And this was Montrose allowing himself to emote, allowing himself to be vulnerable, giving himself these feelings and that softness that he had to cut away for his own safety, as you can see. And it was just so much. Oh God. Yeah, we cut away back to Letty and Tick. I mean, Letty and OG. Letty and OG is there, and OG says, listen, she realizes I can't stop the future from happening. So you know what? Here's the book of names. Make sure you're using it for good and not bad. Here's the words that you need to use it. And gives her all of the instructions. And then she says, when my great-great-grandson is born, he will be my faith turned to flesh. Took me out. Took me all the way out. And baby, I was done. I was done for at that point. It was no stopping the floodgate of tears at that point. Montrose then, we cut back away to Montrose, and he tells Tick that, you know, because that's when Dora and George come and they try to save Tick, but it's too many white guys. And then that's when Tick is reminded of the fact that the stranger came to save them. And the stranger came swinging a bat like Jackie Robinson. This is 1921. Jackie Robinson has not made it into the major leagues yet. So they're sitting there and they're like, wait a minute, where's the stranger? Where's the stranger? They look down. There's a bat there. Tick realizes, I am the stranger. And that's going back to the part I told you about Letty, knowing that that's why the book they make it. This was the part of the science fiction of it where you realize that history is fixed. This was going to happen regardless. So with Letty getting the book, that's how the book never made it out of Tulsa. It wasn't that he got burned because Letty took it. Same way, Tick goes back and save his father, and in turn is saving his own life by saving his father, his mother, and his uncle. It was Tick, and that goes full circle back to episode 1, where Tick is even dreaming about Jackie Robinson saving him from aliens with the bloody lady and everything from episode 1. This goes full circle. Oh, this is just great writing here. This is just great here. It was so good here. So Tick then picks up the bat. At that moment, they cut away to, as they're cutting away to Letty and OG, you hear in the background the spoken word. And y'all know every week they give us a spoken word that's always so powerful. This week they give us brilliant black poet named Sonia Sanchez. And the poem is entitled Catch the Fire. She wrote it in 95. She actually wrote it for Bill Cosby. And it's called Catch the Fire. And it's so powerful to see and hear her perform this. But you hear this beautiful spoken word by Sonia Sanchez. You cut away to Letty and OG. And OG says to Letty, pray with me. And Letty holds OG's hand, and you watch this lady burn. You watch the skin melt away from her body. Letty holding her hand. This black woman knew her place. She trusted her God. She said, I hope God is ready for me when I get there. And she knew what was going to happen and just said, it's such a powerful thing to be at the face of death, knowing that you are going to die, and the level of strength that, you know, is embodied at that moment, knowing, yep, I'm about to die, but I'm here for it. Let's do it. And the fact that you could just grit your teeth, sit there and allow it to happen. I was bawling real tears at this point. Just bawling. That coupled with the spoken word by Sonia Sanchez. And then we see, they cut away to Tick, who is unleashing the wrath of and rage of every black person on these white men and the women. Because he beat the white men just like he beat that white woman that was there. Tick was embodying and personifying all of the wrath and rage of thousands and millions of black people on those white people. Do you hear me? Child, I was here for it. We then, and so they keep cutting away back and forth. We see both Tick with the bat, and then we see OG dying, and we're hearing the spoken word, catch the fire, catch the fire. It was a lot. And Tick start making their way back to the portal. As they're doing that, you're watching the Tulsa massacre happen, and you see the black people fighting tooth and nail. It wasn't like they just rolled over and let the white people do that, which goes back to what Tick said last episode. If they're gonna take it from you, you don't let them get it easy. And that's what those black people in Greenwood did. They said, you gonna take it? Okay, you're gonna have to take it. And so they make it back to the portal. Letty's not there yet. Montrose says there's something wrong with the portal. Tick goes through the portal. Hippolyta says, I don't know how long I can keep this up. And Tick says, you got to. Letty's not back yet. Letty's not back yet. And he would tell her, you got to do this for D. And baby would not tell you the strength of every black woman in America, every black mother in America was funneling through Hippolyta's veins at that point. Baby, the way Hippolyta channeled all of her female ancestors through those 200 years she went through. Baby Hippolyta gave out a scream, and you saw her hair turn blue. She actually morphed into the Orythia Blue character, and she began to levitate because it was powerful. It was so powerful, y'all. It was so powerful. I mean, you saw she began to foam and everything, and the raw energy and strength she literally had to put into this for the life of her daughter. Montrose is still in Tulsa. Montrose then stands at the window, in this picturesque window, watching. And this was, to me, the culmination. Now, let me talk about the background. In the background, you hear this opera song. This was a song that was actually created for this show. And the song is, I think it's called 1921 Catch the Fire, something like that. But the song is based on the third stanza of Sonia Sanchez's poem. It is sang by a phenomenal black female soprano by the name of Janae Brugger. Her name is spelled Janai, last name Brugger. Anyway, if you've not heard her, I've heard her sing many a time. Great soprano. And she's singing this requiem, this song that was written for this show, for this moment. And you are literally watching Montrose. And I just was so captivated and encapsulated with Montrose. This scene alone was enough. Montrose then begins to go down this list of all of these powerful black people that sat there and said, nope, if you're going to take it, you're not going to take it without a fight. And he listed them. He went down the line. And everybody he named were actual people. Every building he named were actual buildings. Every place. And he just reminded America of how horrible these yet to be United States of America are. And you had to sit there and watch this man relive what was the worst moment of his life, and which was in essence watching America relive one of its worst moments in its history. We needed to have him stand there and say their names. Many names a lot of us did not know. The Dr. A.C. Jacksons of the world and all of the other people that he named. Oh my God, it was so powerful. Now, while part of my brain is watching Letty walk down this street with all of this madness, mayhem, fire, bullets, bombs coming down around her, thinking, oh, this is a beautiful moment. Watching this powerful black woman walk through this and not be touched, basically spitting in the face of these white people trying to destroy everything that is black. At the same time, in my mind, I'm like, hey, whore, we waiting on you. You need to be running. I don't want you sitting up here walking. Now, I'll give her a pass because she just had to literally sit here and watch OG burn to the ground. But it was a lot. She finally makes it back with book in tow. Montrose and her jump through the portal, and the portal closes, and Hippolyta is caught by Tick, and they all make it out. And it goes out, and that operatic song is still playing. Instead of the normal song they play at the end of the episode, they play this song, and they let it go all the way to the end. It was a lot, y'all. That was the whole episode. I know this was grotesquely long. It was beautiful. It was hard, but sometimes you gotta tough it out and stick through some of these things to be reminded of all of what you've been through. Sometimes in order to recapture the innocence or that softness that Montrose had to cut away, they got to go back and relive it. And you got to deal with some of the traumas that this was almost like a therapy session for a lot of Black people through cinema. It was a lot. It took me about an hour and a half to come down from this episode. I didn't know what I was going to do on this review, but I hope y'all enjoyed this review. I enjoyed making it. This is clearly my favorite episode thus far. This was our Montrose episode. I kept saying they got to give us a Montrose episode. So this was that episode. And this is by far. Now, I don't know what episode 10 is going to give. But if episode 10, however it goes, as of right now, this is my favorite episode of the whole series thus far. So let's get down in the comment section and do what we do. Let's talk. Let's argue. And let's, y'all help me out for those places that I think that I may have missed. Until next week and next time, I'm so sad that we only got one more episode. I just don't want it to end. That's all I got for y'all. Thank y'all for coming. Y'all drive safely. I'm out.